p.m. to midnight Eastern Standard Time as I launch this thing this year, this uncensored program. Let me just make sure I'm doing my newest toy is Sprecher. So if you want to listen to the program but not see the program, you can go to Sprecher and do that, and you can check that out. All of these links are up on my website, charlesmoskowitz.com. Excuse me. John Delemy is my guest. He is the author of Making Capitalism Great Again, How to Maximize America's Booming Economy, plus the ABCs of Socialism versus Capitalism. John has worked with hundreds of business owners and entrepreneurs, helping them generate millions of dollars in revenue. That's great. John, thanks for joining me.
Thanks, Charles, for having me. And I appreciate what you're doing, getting the real news out, and navigating all the crazy censorship. And, it's definitely, we're in a war in America, but that's why we do what we do. And I appreciate you having me on as a guest.
Well, John, you talk about capitalism versus socialism, and I feel more optimistic now that we still have capitalism in play, because capitalism is the natural state of man. And that I say that particularly regarding the big tech and the internet, because as we were talking about briefly before we went on the air, there was a major banning on January 8th when President Trump was banned, the sitting president of the United States, from Twitter. And the excuse given for that ban was that he had tweeted out that he would not be attending the inauguration of Joe Biden. Now, is that that's something they were looking for? Something, obviously it had been long in the planning. And I interviewed Alan Bokhari, who wrote a book about this. He's a reporter with Breitbart. And he points out that this started right after Trump was elected, because Trump was not supposed to be elected by the establishment. Right. And so they started a plan by which they would cut back on and shadow ban and outright ban and algorithm ban conservative thought. Now, I'm not against some censorship. And I think that, for example, Rumble, which is the flagship of my show, they do have standards. You can't incite violence on Rumble. You can, they don't allow porn, which is all over Facebook and Twitter, right? And also, and by the way, inciting violence is all over Facebook and Twitter. They don't seem to have a real problem with that, as long as it's not, as long as it's not perceived as on the right. I mean, this guy recently who, it took hostages at a synagogue in Texas, he had Facebook, and he was putting vile, anti-Semitic content on his site. So Facebook didn't care about that. They care about conservative opinion, and that's what they're banning. However, I'm optimistic because now Rumble and Gab and all of these sites are taking off. I mean, they are really moving quickly up in terms of following. And I think we are competing now with these big, censorious, and I would argue un-American sites. What do you think?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, they're after conservative values. I mean, if what we were sharing was not the truth, why do they want to silence us? They have a false narrative. And just for all your listeners, Facebook and Twitter's, they're not going to change. So people waste so much time thinking they're going to change. Capitalism is the ability for you to take capital, means an idea in your mind. Capital is an asset, a piece of real estate, a stock, something is going to increase in value. Well, an idea is the most valuable asset you have. And I believe right now, Charles, big problem, big opportunity. We're in the biggest opportune times ever in America's history. Why? Because you get to a point in life where you say enough is enough. YouTube and Facebook and Twitter, they don't own you. They didn't birth you. They're not my parents. They're not your parent. They're not your family. So we as conservatives have to speak the truth consistently. We can't back down. We have to be truthful, loud, proud, and consistent. That's a patriot. We're in a 1776 revolution. And freedom of speech is the first amendment. I mean, in the Constitution. I mean, and they want to shut it down and censor it. So that's why capitalism, for all of you, everyone listening, absolutely realize that that's all they're after. They're after the ability for people to earn income. Socialism and communism wants to kill the economy. That's all the mask is, and the vax passports, and a man. Who would have thought a year ago you need to be double vaxxed, double boosted, masked up, freaked out, walking a restaurant in New York City. 15 days to flatten the curve. Now you can't walk obviously you hear my accent. I'm born and raised in New York. I live in Florida, like 90% of New York. But thereafter, you got to realize all they're after in the government right now is capitalism, the ability for you to earn income freely for you and your family. That's all this is about. If we just recap all this and get to the bottom line, they're after God and earning income. That's it. And we have to fight that, not physically, but with our community, sharing in all your live streams. That's why I'll take this. Obviously I shared, we're streaming on my programs, and when it's recorded, I'll send out everywhere. And guys, we have to, as a team, support each other. There's more of us than them. I mean, everywhere I travel around the country, there's more of us, because I'm famous for my uniform, my tie. And no matter where I go, people go, I love that tie. And what's interesting too is the next statement, Charles, is I like what it stands for. Like, we all know we should stand for the flag. I mean, so we're in the greatest times in America. I mean, because big problem, big opportunity. So censorship, Facebook's they're not going to change. And guys, some of you don't even try to waste your time on making them change. I mean, just start to navigate it, build some other platforms, and so forth.
Now, John, what you're saying is quite sensational with regard to the masks and the mandates and the passports and the lockdowns. Are you suggesting that these things are not scientifically based, but they actually are a deliberate and conscious attack on our economy? Because we know it is an attack on the economy, especially small business owners, mom and pop businesses, that are having trouble, restaurants, everyone having trouble staying in business. But is that a deliberate thing? And if so, why are they doing that?
Well, I mean, the virus knows, let's not go into ABC small business, but we'll go in there, but we don't go in Walmart, or we don't go in Taco Bell. I mean, guys, the whole country, wake up. They were after fear, shutdown, lockdown, mask. Yes, it's a flu strand. I mean, my wife and we travel the entire country. I've been around a zillion people. I'm alive. I was trending on Twitter. They want to kill me. I'm going to die. I'm live. I'm 56, healthy and alive. They knew they had to do something. We have to remember where this started. They tried to steal the election in 2016. They didn't believe that Trump would get so many votes that they shut down the cheating. And they said, wait a minute. And then he started to do what he said he was going to do. And they said, you know what? We got to go all out. And when I saw in Hong Kong, Trump 2020 signs, I said, China's going to do something. A week and a half later, Wuhan virus. We're in World War III. So the mask, vaccine, passport mandates, it's all to shut down people's ability to prosper. Because once they shut it down, you sit back, then you get money from the government. It's Cuba, Venezuela, communism, and they shut it down. Everyone listening to this, there's no scientific data at all. Get yourself healthy, build your immune system, get outside, get around people. I mean, right now, the CDC, which I call the Center for Delusional Control, they now want to give kids Fauci, they want to give kids under the age of 5 and 5 years of age, 5 months, double vaccine for
oh my God. I mean, this is, and meanwhile, in Europe, there's already huge evidence that particularly young men are getting heart disease from this. And it's horrible. Now, I'm not coming out against the vaccine. I've had the vaccine. I don't make advice about medical questions. That's up to the individual. I neither condemn or condone.
Sure.
But what people are upset about, and what the truckers are upset about right now in Canada, which I'm very proud of that. I mean, I think this is the first time in Canadian history that the Canadians, who are usually pretty laid back people, they're getting up and they're having almost like, it's like Poland in 1990, 1988 or 82, 83 with Lech Walesa. This is like solidarity movement stuff. They're like rebelling against this. And what they're rebelling against is the mandates. It's not the vaccine itself. That's a personal choice. If you want to wear the mask, wear the mask. I know there are some people that are never going to take it off. But
listen to that statement. They're never going to take off. Now, look, it's a face diaper. It is disgusting and dirty. It's horrible.
Yeah. Oh, it's terrible.
So everyone realizes that. And as your listeners and I, it's when you book me to be in your show, sometimes it comes with a warning, as I say, I'm going to speak the truth. And you have to realize that if people got so controlled to wear a mask thinking it's going to work, it is the most, it's so dirty, and it's a germ infested situation to create ear infections. You
Oh,
can't
it's terrible.
smile. I mean,
Yeah, it does a number on your teeth.
everything. Brutal.
It's not a good idea. Now, John, do you believe that the virus was created in a lab in Wuhan, China? I mean, this is something
By
that,
Fauci? Yes. Let me add on
yeah.
by Fauci. Yes.
So yeah, exactly. I mean, it's something that now a lot of doctors around the world have now said this. Even the New York Times, in smaller print, maybe, are admitting this, that this is very likely, and that Dr. Fauci and Dr. Anthony Collins from the end from the what is it, the other big agency, that they had done an end run around the backs of two presidents, Obama and Trump. Obama, to his credit, banned gain of function research in the United States because it was too dangerous. So they went to China, our enemy, communist China, and arranged for funds and arranged for files and arranged for information and for help to create this virus. I mean, this to me is like in the realm of, like, Yosef Mengele. I mean, this is really, horrible, traitorous stuff.
I mean, it's coming. It's a war. It's not. I tell people, look, there's no rhyme or reason. It's not going to 15 days to flatten the curve, to double vax, double boost passport, Wuhan lab, Fauci, Gates, China, because under President Trump, China was suffocating their economy. They were with all the sanctions, and Trump put America first. And then they said, wait a minute, the economy was the best ever under President Trump, and China was the worst. Everyone pay attention to this. This is what it was. America was the best ever in its history. China was the worst ever in its history. Right. China is a communist country. They murder and kill Christians. They murder and kill people right now. They come in, they steal the election. Now look, China's the best, America's the worst. But that's where fighters, that's where we as conservatives, and I said this back in 2020, Charles. I said that 2021 is going to be 1776. I would say 2020 was 1775. The truckers convoy, that's a revolution. That's 1776 of 2022 for truckers control the country.
Of course.
So there's just to recap, there's no question that the virus was a biochemical weapon warfare against America, sent out through Wuhan lab, sent out through I'm from New York, sent out through Cuomo, through New York City. He murdered old people in
oh my God, yeah, this is the most. That's the other thing. I mean, each state, Trump his approach to it was very Republican and very, in a way, capitalist, in that he allowed the states primarily to decide what they would do. People always refer to Trump as a fascist. Nothing could be further from the truth. I mean, he actually was
the fascists refer to him as a fascist.
Yeah, and then you had people like de Blasio over in New York saying you should call out the U.S. Army, and force, and he wanted people wanted martial law. Trump didn't do any of that, thank God. I mean, it's a good thing he was president. But some states, like New York with Cuomo and some of the other red states, they went all fascist. I mean, they should say Cuomo was putting COVID-19 active people in nursing homes. I can't think of anything more evil in recent decades in this country than that. I mean,
and it's evil. I mean, it's pure communism. I mean, it's Nazi Germany tactics to control a race, but the race is Americans. The race is we the people. But the issue is, we have a constitution. We have a Second Amendment. The only amendment in the Constitution they have in blurred is a Second Amendment. And that's why that's why all of you, we talk about this whole business. And for all of you watching Charles' show, support his sponsors, support the people that makes his show possible. There's more of us than them. You have to take your local community. People go, John, how do you change the country? Your house first, take your home, take your local community, and then you go city, county, state, country. So make a list of where you invest your money. Food stores, dry cleaning stores. We get all my books is self-published in America. I tell them, don't buy it off Amazon, buy it through my website. Everything we publish, I have a bunch of quote cards and posters we do with my quotes, all printed locally at a printer. Patronize local conservative businesses. Make a list of small business restaurants. Don't use the food app. Don't stay in your house wrapped up in a friggin' mask. Get out to the
Get
store,
out, live your life,
patronize,
and
get away from the Taco Bells, get away from the McDonald's, get to the small businesses, go and say, look, I'm a patriot, and find conservatives. There's more of us than them. I challenge all of you. Wear an American tie and walk into a business. I guarantee you people will say, I love that. Then the conversation begins. Let's go, Brandon. Biden's a criminal. This is amazing. Because they're looking for something to activate the conversation. Everywhere we go, it happens.
In fact, the biggest Let's Go Brandon store is right here in my own home state of Massachusetts, which is supposed to be the bluest of all blue states. We were talking about, excuse me, Cuomo putting the COVID-19 people in the nursing home, while at the same time, President Trump had arranged for the U.S. Naval hospital ship,
Mercy ship,
to go into New York Harbor with 2,000 beds. These had the best doctors in the world. These are MASH doctors. They know how to do, emergency medicine. And they sat there twiddling their thumbs for 3 weeks because Cuomo didn't want Trump to look good, basically. So people had to die for that reason, which brings me to this point that you're making, and I think you're making it very eloquently, and that is that the virus and the way it was handled was deliberately put out there to stop Trump from getting reelected. And I think that the proof of that is the fact that the virus was used as an excuse to paper the House with millions of unsolicited ballots. I mean, this came out in the Arizona audit. It came out elsewhere where people were getting 30 or 40 ballots mailed to them. And there's one case in California, University of California in Santa Barbara. The college was empty because of the virus. And yet 3,000 votes came back from that college. I mean, this was what it was about. And you're also bringing up something very important, John, because it's as grassroots a movement as the trucker movement in Canada, which is coming to the United States. And that is that people are getting involved in local politics. They are joining, they are signing up at their local election boards, their precincts. They are volunteering to watch the voting places. They're volunteering to be in the counting room when the absentee ballots are counted. They're running for local office, and I'm talking, grandparents and teenagers and empty nesters, anybody who has a little time in their hands, they can go out, and you have thousands of people across the country right now doing this. And this is why Glenn Youngkin was able to win in Virginia. He wasn't supposed to win. They had thousands of people. His campaign and the Republican National Committee, which knows damn well what happened, even though they won't say it publicly, they put money behind it. They had lawyers on call in case any funny business happened. And they had the cleanest election in that state they probably had. They probably had since before the Civil War. And this is why Youngkin won. And now we have to see that repeated across the country for this midterm, because that's what your book is about. Can we take back capitalism in 2022?
And I mean, that's what it's about. Everybody's frustrated. They're frustrated on, just the price of food. I mean, I had an orange here before we began. This is my studio. It's not, we have a separate studio here in West Palm. It's not my home. I brought an orange from my home to eat. Yeah. My wife told me today that she actually bought these oranges and brought them back to the counter and bought some others because there was so much money. I mean, the price of food, and everyone listening right now, we are in a revolution in America. It's all about, everybody wakes up every day in America to do what? To earn income, to prosper. I mean, I'm not, as you can see, I'm full-blooded Italian, born and raised in New York, last name DeLemme. I have my legal immigration papers here from my grandparents. 1913 came through Ellis Island, 9 of them, $17 in their pocket, 2 weeks in a boat from Italy. And they came here to fulfill their dream, to be able to build a business. And this entire country was founded on capitalism. Not, let me get here, wear a mask, get jabbed up, boosted up, vaccine passport, and sit back and get a stimulus check. And that's why they want to shut this country down. They want to keep people home. And that's why the illegal alien problem is feeding this, because, and I say this, and this is a very strong statement, any company that hires illegal aliens as employees is just as dangerous as an MS-13 gang member. Why? Let me explain. Because people that lose their jobs are going to get, they get alcohol problems, drug problems, physical abuse, emotional abuse, anxiety, depression, suicide. So this whole illegal alien issue is driving these 2 million illegals into this country. They have to work. They're taking jobs from Americans. And I say this in every interview I'm on, Charles. Anyone you see that hires illegal aliens in their company, report them and let your neighbors know, because they're going to steal your neighbor's job. And what happens? People lose their jobs. They go home. The kids are home. These guys start drinking. We all know they drink, drugs.
You have idle people at home.
I mean, that's another weapon is that illegal alien is against capitalism. Remember, guys, this is what's going on in America.
Well, yeah. I mean, there was some very, very strange things that happened once this regime was installed. One of them was that the border wall was stopped. The embassies and the clearinghouses in Mexico and Guatemala and El Salvador that were hearing cases of refugees were shut down so that nobody could be processed, and the border was opened up. That, along with shutting down the pipeline and we had an energy.
First week. You did in the first week.
We had energy independence in this country, which, by the way, was good for the environment, because now we have an energy deficit. We're ordering oil from Russia, China, which don't have the same pollution standards as we have. So all these people are screaming about global warming. We have a worse environment because of this. We have that. And then of course, in the schools, we find out, mainly because of the pandemic, they have this really divisive critical race theory business where people are being told that Black children are told, you shouldn't learn math and science because that's becoming a part of the white privilege, white aristocracy, and white kids are told don't learn these things because you're part of white privilege, and you should hate each other. That you have actual this kind of divisive stuff. Now, this kind of stuff is not an accident. I mean, these things have been implemented. I mean, Attorney General Merrick Garland's son-in-law is one of the major people implementing critical race theory around the country, with the funding of Zuckerberg, who also helped fund the Trump overthrow, but we could get into that. I don't know how far I want to go with that one, because I still am on Facebook. But John, I mean, what the hell is going on here? I mean, these things are insane, and yet they are being done, and they're being done consciously. This isn't an accident.
Because something you said, Charles, you used the word regime.
Yes,
it's a regime. It's a communist regime. There's not going to be anything from this fake administration that's going to be productive for America. Everyone pay attention. We are in an active war, and we as citizens have to take our personal responsibility and our duty in like Charles' show, share the show everywhere. You see, sometimes, we preach to the choir. There's many of you that have family members and workers, and you love them, you respect them, great people. They just don't know. They just brainwashed from the radical left. So share a show like this, and all of a sudden you start to maybe have a ripple effect. They start to realize, where there isn't one policy they implemented that is making my family better, making it better for my kids, for my livelihood, it all comes down to someone comes home at night. They want to put their head in a pillow, safe environment. They work hard. They earn some income to put food on their family, and they go out the next day and have an example for their kids. That's America. Everything this administration is doing is destroying that. But we have to make a decision to make capitalism great again and maximize America's booming economy. When I say that, people go, John, is the economy booming? Yeah, because you can wake up every day and you can make a decision and say, you know what, this is what I'm going to do in my life for my family and for my business. And once again, in my book, I talk about it. 98.4% of businesses in America are small businesses, 10 employees or less. They're community-based businesses. So you take a community and look wherever, like, in other words, like, even what I purchased this microphone, I purchased this from a local electronics store. Right. Everything you could possibly do, we have to move off using Amazon. And now, for many of you, it's because we got very convenient. Every time you're going to make a purchase on Amazon, it's okay. Can I purchase that locally?
Exactly. And you help your local bookstore, your local business.
Absolutely.
It's the idea is localism, to try to help out your neighbor. It's the right thing to do. They're probably, even in terms of cost, there's not a lot of difference. And you're really genuinely doing something to contribute, to your community. Now, right. John, you mentioned a very interesting word there, which I think I want to explore: brainwashing. Mm-hmm. I think that you probably know people like this. I know people like this, including people, frankly, in my life who are very, they despise Trump without really understanding why. There's no like rational explanation. Oh, he said something mean, or blah, blah, blah. You know, and there's almost like something psychological going on there. Like people have been programmed or like, and I think that, we can't dismiss the possibility that the mainstream media and the mainstream means of entertainment in this country and the big figures of influence in this country have really demonized Trump to the point where it was like a Chinese water torture, drip, 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 drip,
Oh, yeah.
every single day. The New York Times threw out its standards and they would run cockamamie false stories about Trump. And then the next day they'd retract it on page 20. And the damage was already done and they had their moment of hate. And it's something about this that I think people have gone into like this collective moment of hate where they don't even know who they are anymore. They don't have any they don't care that the country's going to hell. They're so like wrapped up in this thing.
And that's the key, like you said, they don't even know who they are. Like right now, if I tell people, would you thought this 2 years ago, you'd be wearing a mask, standing in bullets, round circles. People actually believe social distancing works. Like we're infected animals.
Yeah, the world
it's completely asinine. You get to the point to where, like, I make a joke and my wife laughs. I'll do like hopscotch. Like we're playing, so jump in this bullet, this circle. So brainwashing, what happens is, and because, because I founded the Conservative Business Journal, we have 22 contributors and I publish a lot of articles because I'm in the media. I watch Local 25 News here in Florida and Channel 5. It's brutal. You would think you walk outside the door in Florida and you just drop dead, like bam, you're dead. COVID dead. I mean, it's nonstop. I mean, they have the death ticker and the vaccine ticker live. It's horrible. So what happens if that's all you watch? That's why they want to censor. See, and you guys can, I always tell people when I'm interviewed or just always grab a pen that writes and take some notes. But if someone's censored, that means they're speaking the truth. Censorship proves you're a truth sayer. It's one of my quotes. If you're censored, you're most likely telling the truth because 85 to 90% of ads on mainstream media is Big Pharma. Big Pharma produces the vaccine and all the drugs and all the masks. I mean, you got the government sending out free vaccine, free COVID test, then 495. Talking about capitalism, somebody's making those masks and the government's buying from them. And they think capitalism is bad. I mean, that's brainwashing, is pure manipulation. I talk about it in my book. I said, socialism manipulates your mind. It's like if you take something and you want to manipulate it, you want to move it around so it fit. Like all of you that have ever traveled and you take luggage and you load up clothes, you kind of manipulate that. You get that zip of clothes eventually because you manipulate it, you move it around.
Yeah,
that's all they're doing is manipulating the great mind God gave you to think. Like I see parents with kids 4 or 5 years of age in Florida wearing a mask. Like, what is that going to do? But see, it's not just a mask, Charles. It's the compliance. See, I have a whole breakdown of communism. The letter C for communism stands for compliance. Once you comply once, the next letter is over. They got you. See, that's the entry point.
And they're never going to give it up. I mean, and maybe the virus might recede a little bit, then they'll hit us with another one. And it's
the flu. I mean,
they're not going to have people with a mask. They'll be masked for the rest of their lives. And it's particularly despicable to do this to children. That children, they're sitting in the classroom with this thing and they think if they take it off, they're going to kill their parents. It's so, it's so low.
Massachusetts, there was no flu, Charles, last year in Massachusetts. Boston, there was no flu. There was the Boston Red Sox, but there was no flu in Massachusetts in 2020. Now it's back. Now the flu's back, which is, it's such nonsense.
And people need to get a little immunity anyways. You maybe catch it. There's a mild case of this thing. If you get it, then you have natural immunity. And, it's sort of like, that's life. I mean, we all have immunities to different things we're exposed to. Now, during Trump's administration, of course, you had what Trump accurately called the deep state trying to remove him from office. There's no question about that. There were already been 3 indictments and 1 conviction from the John Durham Special Prosecutor's Office. And apparently there's more coming down the pike. This all contributed to this drip, drip, drip of hate that these sensational stories would be covered. I'd get like a bulletin on my cell phone from the Boston Globe, breaking news, and I'd look at this thing and my heart would start to, and Stormy Daniels said this. I mean, some cockamamie thing, and then it's all pulled back the next day. Well, the thing is that they're still doing it now. They're still trying to impeach Trump with this phony Capitol incursion story, which is unraveling in that we now know that there were FBI agents and Capitol Police agents involved and Antifa involved, and that the Proud Boy and not the Oath Keepers were basically retired military men and retired policemen who were trying to protect and guard Trump supporters from Antifa, which were a violent communist group that were throwing acid in people's eyes and hitting people over the head. So they'd go out and they would protect people. There's nothing subversive about them. And yet they're the ones who are called subversive. And, this whole thing is part of this trip. Now they're really depending on this nightly thing. I hear, Lester Holt and all the big media, breaking news from this phony committee. There's going to be charges, and it's the same playbook. My question to you, John, is this going to really hold up for them? Because
nope.
Because that's right. I mean, I hope so, because when Trump was president, that's one thing. And President Trump could be very irritable to people. But now that he's retired and he's been removed, is this going to work for them? I mean, especially as we go toward the midterms?
No, that's why the midterms is going to be a tsunami of red. It's going to be a tsunami. That's why all of you have to show up at the polls. Yeah, you have to make sure that many of you work the polls, watch the polls, volunteer, get involved in local politics, know who's running for school board, city council, but it's not going to work. I mean, you mentioned the Boston Globe. Is these people eventually, guys, Cuomo, where's Chris Cuomo and where's Andrew Cuomo? Eventually.
And now that skunk over at CNN, at MSNBC.
Zuckerberg, they're all going to be exposed. I mean, Newsom's next, Lightfoot's next. It's going to happen. You could only lie. So, Bernie Madoff went 21 years as a scam artist. There's only so long a criminal can go before they're exposed. And when you watch American Greed and you watch the mindset, they're sociopaths. They have no emotional connection to anything except themselves, and they control, and they don't like people like you or me because we're confident in our conservative values and they can't manipulate our conversation. So everyone listening, it's very important for you to feel, and I have a whole section in my book about confidence. Mm-hmm. That's what the communists don't like, confidence. Someone that says, wait a minute, let's have a discussion about that. Let me go to the Constitution and let me read something to you. Like I carry this with me when people go, if they say, I don't have a mask on, I'm like, show me where it says this. Show me in our Constitution where it says I have to, it's not a law. It's a mandate. And a side note, I make a joke. I don't believe a man should date a man. I don't believe in mandates. I always drop that one and gets people fired up. But mandates are not effective. And guys, but that drip factor, people read and read and read, and then it's going to blow up. But you have to realize that's why you have to take shows like your show, Charles, and share it. Let people hear, maybe something I say, maybe the mandate thing fires up, the mask thing fires, but they start thinking like, how much longer is this going to go? Like, is it going to be 64 boosters?
They're going to keep
and 54 masks? What's it going to be?
Yeah, they're going to keep going as long as they can. Probably Israel is the most vaccinated country in the world, and now they're admitting that it failed because they're the most highest COVID cases.
It's just nonsense.
It's all gradually coming out, and I think that I'm confident that because of programs like yours, John, and your book, and this growing alternative economic universe we're talking about, it can't be controlled. They can't do it. I mean, they thought they could crack down when they took Trump off of Twitter, but it hasn't worked, and it's not going to work. The other thing, you carry the Constitution. If there's one thing we've learned from this event, or at least those of us who are not normies, it's that the Constitution was violated
many times
last election. I mean, you had we now know that that state legislators hold the plenary power to make election laws, not judges, not secretaries of state like that corrupt, rotten Secretary of State in Michigan, Jocelyn Benson, who was put in power by that Hungarian billionaire. You know who I'm talking about.
Yep.
And who was making laws right out of her office that were thrown out 6 months later when it's too late. But that happened in all of these states. That rat over in Georgia, the same thing, Raffensperger, and the one in Pennsylvania who had to resign in disgrace.
Yep.
They were making laws by whim to help Biden. they were making laws that said you could vote and keep voting, until they got their right results. Or in the case of Benson, she said you don't have to look at the signatures anymore. This is how it happened.
And there's
I
no
think
question.
people are now realizing that this was not constitutional. I don't even think state legislators understood their own power. I mean, this is what they're elected to do. They have to take, and they're starting to do it now. It's too late for this year.
And that's why it's midterms. That's why all of you have to get out and get very vocal, get very public about your stance, about your conservative values, and make sure you know who your candidates are, who you're voting for, support them. And once again, it all comes down to capitalism. They want to shut the economy down. I mean, look at the labor shortage and look at the businesses. There's never been a help wanted sign in every business in America ever before. So for all of you that are running businesses, and those of you that may listen to this, let your family know, go back to work, start working, but support small businesses.
That gets into the question of why aren't people going back to work? I mean, is it, I know that people were getting the pandemic money, but that's kind of run out at this point. Why are they still like?
Well, here's what happened.
Yeah.
They haven't paid rent for 2 years. And some people were making up to 40 to 80% more per month on unemployment.
Right.
So they have an enormous amount of money saved. And a lot of people still are the unemployment benefits are not done with, and they're still getting the unemployment benefits, and they're getting medical benefits, and then you still got stimulus checks in the hopper, as we say, coming to them. There's a brutal labor shortage, and bottom line is people got super lazy. They haven't worked in 2 years. They just became slothful slobs sitting home doing nothing, taking advantage of communism.
Yep. So do you think that, I mean, I know that Biden has already expanded the federal deficit to even liberals are admitting to an unsustainable amount.
It's the highest in America's history. The debt,
right, and that the Federal Reserve has run out of things that they can do. I mean, they've already lowered the interest rate to practically zero. What do you think they're going to get another one? I mean, I've heard that they're trying to pull off another $1 trillion bailout.
It all depends how much they can. It depends if the Republicans get a backbone already. It's one thing they don't have in DC is a chiropractor, because no one has a backbone. I mean, get a backbone, and McConnell and all of them on the left. I mean, on the right, the rhinos step up, because they can keep printing money. But what it comes down to, and this is why when I'm interviewed, it all comes down to, it's a big problem we have. DC is not going to solve it. You can solve it today by whatever you do for a living. Be the best you can be, worker, and support small local businesses, and realizing that everybody wins with capitalism. I mean, and you got to realize that we are in the greatest evolution of American business ever. I believe we are now, because when you look back through the economic kind of history in America, during the biggest financial challenges were birthed some of the greatest new businesses. So, if we're still talking about Facebook 5 years from now, that's a joke. I mean, where's MySpace? Where's Sports Authority? I mean, Bed Bath and Beyond, they're about done. I mean, Bed Bath and Beyond's done because they're radical left. I mean, there's so many opportunities.
Twitter has lost 40% of their stock portfolio just in the last 2 months, especially after Joe Rogan jumped ship and he went to Getter.
I don't even use. I mean, I'm on Twitter, but I don't promote it. Because it's a way. It's not going to change. I mean, you got to realize, if you're going down that path and it's not working, don't try to convince them. Go to something else. But remember, there was more wealth created, Charles, in America before any of this technology.
Oh yeah. I mean, absolutely. And you have to believe in the system, and you have to get back into the system in any capacity you can come up with, even if it's something you may not necessarily want to do. The point is, it's a personal thing. You want to have a purpose in life. I mean, you can't just
that's the key.
Sit there and do nothing.
That's the key.
So John, you're doing a great job over there. Where can people hear your show and talk about your book a little bit? Where can people get it and whatnot?
Sure. My main website is you guys can visit conservativebusinessjournal.com.
It's great.
3 words, conservativebusinessjournal.com. And you'll see on there the menu bar, you'll see store. Please, if you choose to invest in my book, which I believe you should, you take some notes, learn from it. Please purchase it from our store, not Amazon.
Good.
Because Amazon pays an author on this book, it sells for, I think, $17. I think we may earn 80 cents to $1.20
From Amazon?
from Amazon.
Yeah.
I mean, it's brutal. It's brutal. So, and then when you guys go to my website, conservativemarketplace.com, excuse me, conservativebusinessjournal.com, when you click on the store, you'll see that we created something, Charles, called conservativemarketplace.com. When I got banned, I can't run an ad from Google on my website ever again. And I was not going to back down. So we created something called conservativemarketplace.com, which has 38 conservative businesses, like the pins I'm wearing, the tie I'm wearing. These are all from American companies that we have in a marketplace. And then definitely take a look at all the articles and get my email
it's
database.
It's a great site. You've got really cutting edge articles there. You've got a great a marketplace site there as well. And your books are available there. John DeLemme, you're doing a great job. You're a great American. And then
what I'll do, Charles, too, on this, you guys will see on my I've been podcasting for years. I will actually take your episode and put it on my podcast platform. So you guys will see podcasts there. Definitely search out my podcast. I've over 5,600 episodes of my podcast. So we've interviewed many people.
Fantastic, John. Listen, I appreciate you joining me. God bless. Let's stay in touch. We should work together sometime.
Absolutely. Thanks, Charles. I appreciate doing what you're doing. Thank you, brother.
Thank you. All right.